Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Revival of America podcast. This is Jenny. I'm the owner and the host of the Revival of America. Today we have Derek Johnson in the house, everybody. So please, if you have a question for Derek Johnson, please feel free to raise your hand, or you can, oh my gosh, sorry, guys. Derek Johnson, we do a little bit different. It's real raw talk with Derek Johnson tonight, everybody. I did ask Derek if we can throw a few Q&A in there. So if you do have a question and you can't speak, go ahead and write it under my logo on the wall. If we get to that point, I'll ask you guys to raise your hands and then we will call on you and open up your mic. So I apologize, guys. So anyway, let me rewind. Anyway, if you come into the podcast late, everybody, you can follow the podcast on the podcast host or the social medias, which are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Riverside, Podbean, Amazon Music. Social medias and 3 of them are still waiting to get verified, and I'm verifying all of them for you guys so you know that they're my legitimate accounts, because unfortunately, everybody, I do have imposters out there, and there's one out there I put on the wall the other day trying to scam me for money, crypto, all that stuff. So real quickly, if you get a random text saying it's me, or any Derek, Captain Kyle, SG any of us, we don't randomly reach out to you guys. Please block, report them, let us know so we can make sure they're not here in the chat. So yeah, those and the verified ones are Jenny Dreed Facebook, at Jenny_Dreed X, at JJreed Rumble, at JJreed Instagram. True Social is not verified. It is at JJreed. The Revival of America right here on Telegram. The Revival of America on YouTube. That's the latest one that we've opened up. So that one's not verified yet. And then at the official JJreed over there on TikTok, that one's not verified either. So also, too, everybody, I can't implore you enough. Please be careful what you listen to, who you are following. There's a lot of craziness going on out there. The division is real. They're trying to put the division out in between the Trump supporters. They want us going at each other's necks. I'm seeing it. It's happening. It's horrible. So please, everybody, just be careful. Stay out of the noise. There's a lot of noise. And hang on to the positives, because there's a lot of positives that are happening, but they're trying to distract us from what is really going on to keep us in that division, right? So when you see the Democrats coming out losing their minds, they're going crazy because the midterms are coming up. So they're just throwing all kinds of shit out there, guys. So stay out of it. If you feel like it's BS going into a chat or whatever, just don't go into it. If you're in something like that, you don't like what they're saying, get out of it. Because I'm telling you, if your mind's not right, you're not going to be able to sustain the bullshit. And it's bullshit. So I'll take it for you. I'll go sit in these chats and let you guys know what's going on out there and what's being talked about right now. People are losing their minds about Trump posting him as being the Pope. But if you dig deeper on that one, there's a lot more going on to it. And it's just, it's common sense, people. So he who owns the gold is the one that makes the rules. And what does Trump always say? We caught them all, we have them all. Who has the gold? So everybody, just please stay out of the noise, because it's thick, it's insane, it's crazy, and people are going from this side of the movement to the black pill side of the movement, and that's terrifying to me. So be careful. We did hear that this was going to happen. We are starting to see some of these podcasters that the bigger ones that have been talking for quite some time. I'll use Candace Owens as an example, turning on Trump. So we've got to be open-minded to that is going to happen. We've been told it's going to happen. Just be careful. Stick and stay with the people that have not led you wrong through the course of your journey here, because more than likely they're going to get you over this hump. So tighten up that circle, everybody. I can't implore you enough. Be careful who you follow and what you're listening to and what you're putting into your mind. Also, to everybody, if you have a story, if you have a journey you want to share, put it onto the podcast because you feel like you've been shunned or whatever, reach out to me at the Revival of America at yahoo.com. We'll get your voices and your story heard, because remember, everybody, it's your voices, your stories that are going to help shape this new world that we are walking into as we speak. And then last but certainly not least, if you guys have not signed up for the newsletter, it is free. It is the latest updates on the podcast, as well as the weekly show updates. You get the guests, the times, the dates when they're going to come on, and that comes on. That we post that over on the website at therevivalofamerica.com. So with that, everybody, Derek is in the house, and I don't want to take much time from him because I know he's probably got a lot to say because he's been down in Florida at Trump Doral. So I'm curious how that all went. And then, of course, all the craziness that's going on out there. I'm sure Derek can I'll tie it into laws and orders, executive orders, and keep everybody calm, because really at the end of the day, everybody, it all comes back to the executive orders and the laws and orders, and that is what Trump is about. Promises kept, made, promises kept. So with that, hello Derek, how are you? Happy Cinco de Gringo, happy Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, I'm definitely a gringo. There's no doubt about that. Uh, yeah, I'm just pulled over in the middle of nowhere, but it's been a good trip. I had to pull over earlier and take a nap. It takes forever to get out of Miami.
Hang on, Derek. Hang on, Derek. Don't hold on. Your volume is very low.
Huh. Well, I
You
hear everything the norm, so that's wild. I can hear everything really well.
you can hear me. Okay, you guys raise your hand. Can you guys hear Derek, or is it just me? Everybody raise your hand here. You can hear Derek, Deb. Anybody else can hear Derek? You all can hear Derek. So maybe that's me. Okay. So let me go out and come back in. Can you all right, I'm gonna go
Yep.
out and come back in, then I'm gonna ask you guys. Well, you guys obviously can hear me. So hang on, Derek. I'm gonna go out and come back in.
Okay. Sounds like Jenny's had too many Cinco de Mayo drinkos.
All right. Can you guys hear me now?
I mean, I've been hearing you the same way.
Oh my gosh, you are so low on my end. That is so weird. Hang on, Derek. And you're at 112%.
Someone
I'm gonna keep going.
someone
Hang on,
just
I'm gonna put you
messaged
two
that
on.
you're rubber banding.
I'm rubber banding. Okay. Well,
Yep.
hang on. I'm gonna go out and come back in, guys.
Pretty sure it's the tequila.
How about now? Is that better?
I mean, I hear the same way.
Okay, you guys can't. Okay, I couldn't hear you, but now you're loud and clear. But you guys, but okay, so I'm good. Okay, let's go. You're loud and clear now, Derek. Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Nah, I mean, it's been you that I've been keeping them entertained. I done told them it's the tequila, it's Cinco de Mayo. You've had too many drinkos, and
I wished.
yeah,
All right.
yep.
Okay. You are loud and clear now, guys. I am so sorry, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised because I've been having technical issues ever, as you know, ever since I moved to this place. So anyway, Derek, how are you? How was Trump Doral? What was that all about? What do you got for us?
Oh well, it was. I went down there for the. It's been planned for like a year, and it was the Charlie Ward event for, I think mainly for his insider people, but and golf. I think they played. My buddy actually that I talk about all the time that has a Corvette and the Doomsday plane. He actually won the long drive contest, so it was like a lot of golf, and then staying on the premise. Some people didn't stay on premise, but some people did, and really Trump Doral is just a golf. It's a golf course and resort, and then it has the clubhouse, which is fine dining, and then the BLT, which is a little bit more clubhouse food, and a bar. And they have events there. They had a prom there. They had another. I ran into a buddy I went to high school with down there. Ironically, didn't know he was
Oh
going to
my
be down there.
gosh.
Yeah, rounded the corner in the club, the actual club. So the fine dining is called the clubhouse, but then the place where if you want to buy a shirt or golf balls or whatever you need, he was in there. So they were there for a convention for something to do with capital investments, but so a lot of things going on there. And, of course, you see a lot of Lamborghinis and Ferraris and, a lot of things like that. They had one of the Grand Prix cars there. They had it yesterday in Miami, but last Monday, they had it sitting there in the very front. And, of course, it was really cool to watch the Kentucky Derby at Trump Doral. That's probably the best thing that happened all week. Not knocking anything else, but just because of all the correlations with the Derby, the name of the horse, and all that. It's kind of cool to watch it right there. So, uh,
Yeah, can you
yeah.
kind of talk a little bit about that? Because that seems to be kind of a talk of the town. What was it? Gosh, what was it again? What were the names of the horses?
Well, so Sovereignty won, and
There
then
you go.
the second place winner was Journalism, and Journalism was favored, but then Sovereignty that won it had a 7-1 odds. So there's your mirror, 1-7, um, and then the 18, the horse was number 18, and Ulysses S. Grant was the 18th president that sold us out the Organic Diet of 1871. He was the president during that time period, and then if you do your math, May 5, the third, the day 2, 2-5, that adds up to 17. So the date of the so you can't make this stuff up. So
Yeah, I was just gonna say you can't make this shit up. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
so
I didn't even watch it, but I was just too busy. But I saw everybody having their little hats and everything on, so that's pretty cool.
yeah, and it's of course the Derby is of course it was real rainy and muddy too, so that was another thing. And then the 151, I did the gematria just on Sovereignty, and that day and everything, and so it's the number will be 151, and so 151 means the Bible, the eagle. So they all saying the eagles landed. I think that's really cool. So, now I know people don't get into some of that, and that's fine because, your average person out there think you're absolutely lost your mind when you talk about gematria and everything, but they care about their bank accounts. They like some numbers. So, um, but, you know, if you're going at someone, of course, it's kind of cool. I was sitting there yesterday doing a podcast before I left. I'm sitting out on the back, overlooking the golf course and the Blue Monster logo. And a guy walks by and he goes, "Derek Johnson, big fan of yours." Well, he could tell he was a golfer. You could tell he's a member by the way he's dressed. I mean, from head to toe, matching golf attire. Um, and then he saw me get done and he came out and introduced himself. He actually has a little podcast himself about capital and investments and things, but on the real world side, on the not all the QFS and all these other things. He's on the real side of capital, and he has quite a big following on his Instagram. And so, we were talking. He said his dad was a Marine and his grandfather, and he's more like me too. And I get it. A lot of people in here are. I mean, we rip the Band-Aid off, but like I told him, that's the Marine Corps thinking. That's the hardcore military thinking. The generals and all the people who put this together are looking out like Native Americans do 7 generations out, and how to sustain all this. But I mean, you know, other than that, yes, as you always lead off in your shows, it's like you got to be careful. There's a lot of people who are, you know, on the lower levels, still trying to infiltrate things, still trying to act bigger than what they are and they ain't, or still, or trying to act like they're somebody and they're not. There was a few walking around down there at this event that just, um, don't need to be there. And of course, that's just, um, things that we as speakers and then others as hosts need to hear. That hey, you need to watch this person and don't let that person back in and don't let that person in. And so anyway, I won't say any names either, but I thought it's kind of cool um, that someone walked up to me, extended their hand and said and apologized. So I won't be ta-
Aww.
I won't be taking any more jabs at them anymore. They admitted they were a certain person. It ain't all of them, but it's a certain person. I said, you know what? Hey, you got integrity and you got a set of, you know what? Nah, I tell you what, I won't make any more jabs at you, even though I never use names on my podcast, but I make examples to show people that look, the reason why I've always used examples for people is is because a lot of people out there are passionate about this in their families, in their friend groups, communities, neighborhoods, etc. And but some people don't know how to rebut somebody who is either rude or condescending or either, just a bully. I do, and so it's like Tom Homan when he walks out at CPAC. It's like he said, number one, I don't give a what you think about me, you know. And but so this person, I thought, there's some people out there still have a little integrity, but for the most part, I get people's frustrations. I mean, I get frustrated just as much for people though, because when you're frustrated, that means you're passionate. When you're frustrated, it means you're hungry. When you're frustrated, it means you're trying. So, when you get frustrated, you don't always have to, beat yourself up. You just have to learn how to put it down and find something to distract yourself and then go back to it. So, right now, a lot of people you want to see justice. And I hear people I hear that's the only thing I hear now. I want to see
Yep.
justice. When are we
Yep.
going to see justice? When are we going to see this? And when are we going to, but at the end of the day, President Trump, the generals, the world leaders, the capitulated leaders, that is, they all have to look at humanitarian law as well. Because, see, terrorists are told that we are the terrorists. All right. Liberals think they know truth and they know facts. So, it's like there's a saying out there that says there's the your side, my side, and the truth. So, see, the little things like that, a lot of people still aren't looking at. And that's okay. I get it. People are still in your little bubble. You're in your world and you are yourself and you have to live for yourself. But that's not how military thinks. Military looks as a whole, like a globe as a whole. Don't look at regions and things like that until you're having to get down the cultures and whatever you're doing in operation status. But just overall as a shell, that's what had to happen. There had to be a clean out. And so what I've been trying to do is just go back a little bit, back up a little bit and go, okay, here's the bigger picture again, because more of the puzzle has come together, what they're doing. So 2017 and 2021, they reset Article 1, which is your legislative branch. I mean, the only way, when you've heard this with Q and other people, but when you've heard military's only way, well, see, way back when, 3-4 years ago, when that started being a trend, no one over there in that bracket knew how to explain that. No one. The military's the only way. Well, you got to know how. Well, the only way military pairs with federal law, there's only 4 ways. It's like a broken record, but executive orders, proclamations, national emergencies, and treaties. So Article 1 in the legislative branch, that's why it's very important. Well, it's also why it's humorous that liberals went stir crazy and they started, Trump said he's going to terminate the Constitution. No, that's not the executive branch. That's the legislative branch who suspends the Constitution. Don't terminate it, suspends it. And that is exactly what law reads. All the laws and executive orders, that is exactly what took place from the 2017 and 2021 era. Real straight, simple. But someone had to come in with a plan, unless you still wanted to go riffraff. If you're out there and you want this to have the flip flop, a president come in every 2 years, the first 2 years, and change what the last one did, and then the next one get in, and then change the first 2 years, spend changing it. If you want that, you had that. So that's when I kept getting frustrated with people too last year when well, why would President Trump kill the economy and why would he make it go to hell? When was it heavenly? When in your lifetime has it been what it should be? It hasn't. So see, that's why if people would have escaped that and looked at the bigger picture, come on up, get an aircraft with me. I got some good pilots. They're all military. Come on, let's get an aircraft. Let's go up and look down. Someone had to come in with a plan that was going to revolutionize law, legislation, which that's still law, but in another kind of manner, but law everywhere. Not changing the Constitution, but setting it back on its foundation. Like Marbury versus Madison said, there's a ton of laws that we don't need on paper. In every state, there's state laws, and then there's federal laws. And so that first 4 years was a resetting. And they put all these executive orders in place, but they were unique orders. See, that's why a lot of your friends and family aren't listening to you, even if you know how to explain it to them, because they're so used to hearing law and this and law that and legislation this and bill that and act this and bill it. There's a unique set of laws that invoke a military government and continuity government. So that first 4 years, then that's why it's important to know Executive Order 13961, December the 7th, 2020. 3 weeks was 24 days before January the 1st, which was the FEMA put a new publication out, the Reconstitution of the Executive Branch. So that Executive Order 13961 was President Trump's invoking of a continuity government. Then 3 weeks later, in some odd days, that FEMA publication, Reconstitution of the Executive Branch. Reconstitution means we're going to set something back to its original state. So they're telling you right there that the executive branch was not in its original state. It had been hijacked. It had been butchered, twisted, manipulated, etc. And that's why you saw J6, the distractions with that. But that's also why the deep state they only had a few options. They had to use health, and then they had to do something that would have confused the people right out the gate with the quote unquote insurrection. And see, this whole thing's been a sting operation. It's been a military government. And the military wasn't going to let it go past a certain parameter. Had it gone to the people, had it really hit the streets. But it didn't. They retaliated in certain ways, and that's been shown and proven. Then January the 20th, your cannons. And the visuals on that day, especially heavy military visuals. Everything that was not correct with the military, all of our customs, etc. That was all visuals of leading into the 2021 to 2025. The other thing that was so humorous that they did was they made it look like Democrats had control, even though it was a continuity government. For the average person out there, they made it look from 2021 to 2023. That dash also matters. The Democrats had control of the House and the Senate. So if President Trump's a threat to democracy, and if President Trump is violating the Constitution, then why didn't Biden, if Biden was real, and I don't know what I know, then why didn't Biden and Kamala and all the Republicans out there, the Rhino Republicans and the sleepy Republicans who said Obama was pulling the strings behind, why didn't all of them terminate every single thing by the outsider, President Trump? Why didn't they abolish everything he put into place? They had Democrat control of the House and the Senate. They had everything. And they didn't touch a single thing, especially military. They didn't terminate anything military. So if he's a threat, then all they did was, let's just fast forward to January the 20th, 2025, and just picture this. I hate hypotheticals, but this is a pretty one with a big red bow. It'd be like Biden walking up for the people that thought he was real and saying, here, President Trump, I didn't terminate any of your military orders. All the troops are still doing what they're doing in a unique setup. I also didn't terminate your executive orders to do with the Panama Canal. We're going to take it back to, here you go. Here's that one back. All right. And also, yes, it was Obama who did write the executive order for the digital service that you renamed. And you're going to rename in a few days. You're going to rename it, by the way. You're going to rename it the Doge. Okay, just heads up. We kept that in place. All right, we didn't touch it. Here you go. I put it in my 2021 American Rescue Plan Act. So we've already passed the budget for it. So here you go. You know, and don't worry, it'll only last a little while. My people's going to call Elon a threat too, but don't worry, it'll pass. See, you got to be smart ass sometimes. You got to be sassy sometimes, because that's exactly what it will be saying when you hear liberals say that Elon's a threat and President Trump's a threat. Because why didn't Biden, if he was real, he would have had full power like every other president would have had. And there wouldn't have been a thing Republicans, conservatives, patriots, whomever could do about it. Nothing. Except for a Revolutionary War, you know, and I'm not inciting violence. We don't need it. But that's the only thing that we could have done if we didn't like it, because we'd have been stuck with that for 4 years. All right. So that's why it's important to know that. So that was what took place 2021, 2025. That's when the real military government, the visual of it, the puppet government, the government in exile. And all this has been validated because capitulation, white flag of surrender, occupied territory, puppet government, those terms are not government terms. Those are all law of war manual terms. All law of war manual, all military terms. And it's all over the board. All those different terms were thrown all around from 2021 to 2025 in President Trump's speeches. There's no such thing as a midterm rally. We have rules. We have things to do with, like your election year. President Trump at the border would have been a breach of national security if Joe was a sitting president, no matter how stupid Joe could have been if he was real and he wasn't. But hypothetical again, no matter how dumb he would have been, no matter how crazy, foolish, insane, whatever, incompetent, whatever word you want to apply there, that would have been a breach of national security with President Trump being down there if he was a former president. All right. So it's all these things that we have. So that was that. Now, what's dominating the news right now? January, here we are, January to May 2025. What's dominating? Judge this, judge that, judge this, judge that, judge this, judge that, judge, 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 judge. Well, that is Article 3 of the Constitution, the judicial branch. And now all these articles are popping up that certain towns and certain boards are recommending the what? The removal of certain judges. So see, if people would have just studied a little harder, I'm talking about the negative ones, your friends, family, whomever, the negative ones that says it's hogwash and this is BS, blah, blah, blah. Those people. See, now they're going to look at, I told all those, it wasn't a lot. There's a few veterans that the longer your DD-214 is, the more medals you have, the more badges you have, the bigger your ribbon bay is. Talking about, there's no way Derek Johnson can know what he can know. He didn't serve long enough. Well, the longer yours is, the dumber you're going to look for saying it. And the worse you're going to look. And I don't want veterans to look that way. This is the time that veterans should have really stepped up to the plate. Because when you're a veteran, that means you're out of service. And you can be serving beyond your service. So see, we are truly in a true revolution in another kind of manner as well, because there are a ton of people, ladies, especially women, the women folk, the lady folk, my papa used to call it the women folk. The women have been the patriots, guys, because women read, and when a man says that's a fact, a woman's going to be like, we're going to find out if that's a fact. And y'all do. Right? You're going to look at it. If it's a piece of paper, you're going to study it front, backwards, sideways, diagonal, both corners, and then you're going to read it backwards, upside down. You're going to look at it and see how thick the paper is. You're going to study that piece of paper. You're going to find a loophole if there's a loophole. And there's no loopholes. Not in what I talk about, because I don't make predictive dates and I don't say this, that, not. I take what President Trump gives daily. But the cool part of it is that everything that's in my books, the first one I put in print December 2023, there's stuff that is taking place currently right now that are in those books, but they weren't predictive dates. And I hate that some things are a delay, but you know why they're a delay? Is because we have lazy Americans. We have spoiled Americans. I was joking this week. When we got pickleball championships, the economy ain't doing too bad. All right. People want to talk about the economy and why would President Trump crash the economy and this, that. We got pickleball championships, people, on TV. You can get sponsored now to play pickleball. All right. You can get sponsored to play cornhole. All right. Jenny has heard my dad come on here before And I got a recording of my dad and his best friend sitting around, and it's like listening to Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon from Grumpy Old Men, and it's really freaking hilarious. My dad was like, Joe, what would your dad said if you'd have told him when you were a boy you were going to go play cornhole? Well, let your mind wonder what Joe said. All right. We got people playing cornhole. So, when you look at where we are in society, everything we have, we're so blessed of a nation. If you have food, water, and shelter, you have everything you need. Everything else is a bonus. Everything. So Americans have got to adjust the attitude. We're going to have some attitude adjustments moving into the future, because to maintain and sustain it is going to be easy, because we're not a broke nation by any stretch of the margin. Now, we have homeless on the streets. President Trump said we're going to rescue those. That's going to take a big military to do that. All right. So, but that's going to come somewhere whenever that is. But he's given all these things. And I mean, just this 100 days alone. But we were talking about this at Trump Doral. We were talking about how someone asked a question and you could tell they were kind of, not really awake. But they say they are. And I'm like, oh, if you ask that. But they said something about, how if President Trump, what would their word that they said, oh, the Democrats say that all it takes is all these executive orders can be unturned and unraveled. And I'm like, have you seen what President Trump's done? Have you seen what he has done for 10 years now? Have you been watching? It would take them 100 years to unravel everything he's done. Because here's how you look at this, even funnier or cooler, but more, revolutionary. Look at all the years that Congress could have been doing what they're supposed to be doing by us, the people. We're the government. Look at all these years, however old you are. Look how long you've been living your life, and Congress has not done what they're supposed to be doing. So the competence, and that's why President Trump said something yesterday. I was listening to him on that interview. He's talking about their low IQ people. He's talking about Democrats, and the liberals are low IQ. Well, exactly. And when he would say out there on the speeches, when you'd hear him talk about, isn't it nice to have a president who doesn't have to read a teleprompter? Remember those speeches? He's telling you should want people who are passionate like me. And there's a lot of me's who are passionate, who can just rattle off the top of the head and know this stuff. At any given time, all you got to do is just pretend I got a little string in my back and just pull it and wind me up, and I can rattle. And, right? So, and I know this stuff, but I love this stuff. I live, breathe, eat, consume this stuff. And President Trump is the same way. And, the finances, he just knows finances. He knows math. It's there. And all the people he's appointing. And what's cool is right now, most of the ambassadors he's putting in place are all veterans. And most of them are special forces. See, and that's why ambassador is a government term, but they're the chief of the mission. That's the military term for an ambassador. All right. So what you've been watching is a true revolution from top to bottom, and they're going to make sure we sustain it on out. Now, like yesterday or whenever that interview was on NBC, he said, I'm a 2-term president and won't seek a 3rd term or something like that. He's just saying that. All right. Now, he may not seek another term, but then he followed up with quote unquote Biden and said artificial about the auto pen and these artificial, I don't know, operations and things. He hints that. See, that's the stuff when people, the average world, will go, well, he just said out of his mouth that he's not wartime president. No, he didn't say that. He's saying I'm a 2nd term. I'm a 2-termer. You're not a president when you're a wartime commander. You're not a supreme commander, military government. A military government is not a 4-year constitutional term. And the other thing is this. He's not going to sit there and tell on one little tiny show that's just a little bitty show out of all the interviews he's not going to sit there and tell that, oh yeah, I'm a wartime president. Yeah, we just pulled off the greatest operation. No, you need to realize what he's been telling you. 2 years ago, he said Memorial Day, 2025. Well, he didn't give the date. He never said the date. He said Memorial Day 2025 was one marker. From there to July 4th, 2026. He said Memorial Day. Memorial Day this year falls on May 26th. May 26th, 1783 was the day our founders celebrated the end of the Revolutionary War. And they called it the Great Jubilee. And on that day, even back then, they fired cannons, they had prayers, they had all kinds of visual celebrations. That is what will take place. And he gave you a taste of it. He gave you, remember all the liberals going crazy on the 4th of July a few years back, 4 or 5 years back, when he had all those big displays of the military and the tanks and the aircraft? He gave you a taste of it. And see, what I want people to do is I don't know who you are. Some of you I may never meet. I love meeting people. I met a lot this week. I met a lot of great people. And, look you in the eyes. I'll talk until they tell me I got to go or my back starts hurting and I got to go rest it. But, people, love people. But if you really love President Trump, then the people out there who have been negative, whatever, or just right on the fringe, you just got to study a little bit more. You got to read a little bit more. Everything isn't a legit blueprint. And what's cool about all this is that he just signed an executive order this past week for intellectual property, for songwriters, creators, authors. All right. Well, guess who has the only book that talks about this? Me. And even though I already knew intellectual property and I already knew the laws around that and all, but that's even more perfect. So see, there is a blueprint there. And he validates this all along the way. And then even this interview was full. I can't remember her name, but it's on NBC. It's full of military talk about, oh, will you increase this, or will you do this, or will you do that, or will you do this? It's already been done. So see, it still goes back to you gotta figure out what side of the aisle you want to be on. Do you really want to know? Well, if you really want to know, you got to put all the noise aside. And I hate it. There's a lot of people still in conference centers or whatever you call these things, events. There's a lot of people talking that don't need to be talking. They just don't. Because when the laws and orders more than clearly outline a military government, continuity government, you don't need anything else. And so I get just as frustrated because there is a clear blueprint. There's a clear formula. There's a clear, breakthrough. There's whatever terms you want to put there. There is a clear, whatever you want to call it, to make you go, wow, if you're still there. So it means you just got to study a little harder if you're struggling a little bit. But, there's stuff coming out daily. I mean, President Trump is like having a girlfriend. You got to stay on your toes. I mean, he's like every day, it's like boom, 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 boom. You got it. But if your foundation's there, you'll be able to see it. But if you don't have that foundation with the terminologies that you need to know, then you won't be able to set you. It's kind of like having a girlfriend again. You better get to know her. You got to know her language and how she talks and her expressions and her tones and all that. You got to get your foundation first. Then you'll know how to respond. Then you'll know when to keep your mouth shut or whatever it is. All right.
What an analogy.
It's a great one. But he's rapid fire. And there's, just so much stuff that and he's also showing people like he's talking about we're going to remove the tax exemptions from Harvard. I mean, they're taking out these institutions. So, it's rapid fire and it's right in front of everybody.
So
Well,
Derek, since we're talking about Trump and what he's doing, he's rapid fire and all that stuff. He's also a master. He knows what he's doing. He's brilliant, and he's a master troll. He's the best at it. So can you touch a little bit on, because we talk about people losing their minds, and the liberals are losing their minds about the whole him showing as the Pope, and there's much more to that, and it's deeper. It's like he who holds the gold makes the rules, right? So and it's even deeper than that. But can you kind of touch on that for everybody? Not to say people here in this audience or my audience on the bigger realm, but just people in general. Like I've had some people say, "Hey, I'm not Catholic and I like Trump," but I think that's kind of offensive. That picture. I'm like, well, you got to look further into the whole trolling and really the meaning of what it is. Trump always says we have it all, we caught them all. So if you can touch on that, that'd be awesome.
Well, the bracelet I always wear, my a memorial bracelet for one of my sergeants. He's the one who always said it sucks to suck, and so I'm going to say that it sucks to suck. All right, and I'm like Tom Homan. I don't care what you think about me. We have a job to do. All right, and President Trump, he does certain things right out the gate where it looks real light, cordial for certain people, but then he'll follow up with the hammer, as I call it. And, so you got to go back to the capitulations. 2017 to 2020 was heavily when they happened. And you got to go back to that. And, a lot of people are still wanting to shove under the rug child trafficking. A lot of people are still wanting to shove under the rug sex trafficking and human trafficking. And I don't talk about it in depthly because there's others out there that are specialty at that. However, I do know enough about it. And matter of fact, I'll be on this week with Pablo Escobar Jr. and a few others again, and we're gonna get them to really outline how these cartels operate and function around people, and people not even know it. I've had conversations with so many people who are negative, who are defensible over child trafficking. Americans acting like that's a conspiracy theory. And I have friends who have been in operations for years, and I have seen a few things myself, not extensively like they have. So that's why I don't try to talk too much in that realm of that from that angle. But the stuff I've seen is, it's evil. It's an evil. It's a sickening evil and a disgusting evil. And for people who work around it daily, who have to see that and channel that and compartmentalize those the things they see, you better be lucky you're not in it. And so, and even in operations for it. So I know I've seen people post. I saw someone on Facebook one day posting, claiming to be a patriot, but said, "Oh, if I see another post knocking the Pope, I'm deleting you. I don't care who you are." Well, you have an issue, all right? Because again, it goes back to what I'm saying when I tell people not though to like leaders out there. You don't know these leaders, but when President Trump gives a visual like that, he wouldn't be trolling the Pope. Not even 2 weeks after his death, if there wasn't an underlying answer there that's going to come out later. But see, what I've been trying, this correlates. It correlates with the justice what people are seeking. And I've tried to tell people, look, refrain from using terms like hanging and executions and all that. We have too many people who don't appreciate the process. You got to appreciate the process. You have to appreciate also humanitarian law. Even in the Law of War manual, it talks about the prisoners of war. You treat the prisoners of war with dignity. God's going to be the one judging. But you got to go back again and remember, terrorists, all forms of terrorists, on their angle, on their side, they've also been told that we're the terrorists. All right. And then also, again, anything else on the other sides, they've been raised up. The liberals, that they think they're truth. They think they're the light. All right. So you got to have people who can bridge that gap, who can get in that valley and go, okay, y'all are all crazy. Y'all don't know anything. All right. And I'm not God's gift to all the answers. I'm not. But I know a lot of people in border and security. and also real operations, special forces, special operations. All right. And so the Pope, you know, just in common sense, I know Catholics don't like it, but, you know, the whole basis of God is Christ. The whole basis of the Bible is Christ, and ain't Mary and ain't all this other things. All right. When you stand in front of God, if it looks that way, if it the way the Bible reads, if you stand, he ain't gonna ask you, are you Baptist or Catholic? He's gonna know if you have a relationship with his son. Do you believe my son died for your sins? It's not gonna be, oh, you want to take one more shot of communion before you come in? All right. So if I'm offending you, then great. You know, because you got to get in the real world, real operations. All right. The crown, the Vatican. I mean, this whole thing stems around that. They created their own alliance. All right. And there's evil people out there, and there's trafficking. If you won't listen to Pablo Escobar Jr. and you won't listen to people who are in the border operations, you need to bow your head and tip your way out and go pick up crocheting or something. All right. This ain't for you. And so it's, you know, President Trump is not just getting up in the morning and you know, firing off at the hip and, oh, who can I troll today? No, nothing like that. So in order to be accepting of something, you got to be receptive. All right. And that's where a lot of people aren't. Americans still want it their way, like Burger King, which is also nasty. All right. But, you know, it's not good food. All right. But everybody wants it their way. Nobody wants to know the military. It wasn't a visual operation for a reason. It was unconventional for a reason. The only way that they could have lawfully overthrown the government was unconventional warfare. That is the definition of unconventional warfare with Special Operations Command. It's to disrupt, coerce, or overthrow a government. That's exactly what that is. And the way to do that had to be done lawfully. That's why the blueprint matters, because executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, and treaties. And what's even more pretty about it is the fact that it's using all of what they left open in law. The Global Alliance tried to take power away from the president with the 1973 War Powers Act amendment. They amended the 41 and 42 War Powers Act. The Congress made it to where the president had to declare a national emergency in order to use the military. So President Trump's trolling them even harder by all the national emergencies that they've used. And that's also why I say be careful. Be careful. Some past presidents, even on both sides of the aisle, could have also been good, because the average American don't see the guns pointed at them behind the scenes. The average American don't see that mafia, that cabal. You're not in that system. You don't know that. All right. That's why they fired a warning shot at Gerald Ford. They fired at Reagan, and they shot George Wallace, who was a presidential candidate himself. All right. From the state of Alabama. So you gotta see that there's a bigger picture. It's not the average everyday look at Fox News or whatever the heck you're looking at. There's a lot bigger picture. You got to get into knowing someone that knows the systems. And then when you know the systems, you know there are people behind. And that's why it's looked like this all these years. So you go back to what I said earlier. Do you want the same bullcrap, riffraff, this back and forth, drama, propaganda? Or do you want someone who can go in and kick the door down and with a blowtorch, you know, and the saying like a Roto-Rooter, you know, to clean the shit out, literally, right? Someone who can get in hazmat suits and clean shit out, shit be flying everywhere, but going, woo, I love this, baby. Yeah. You know, you got a picture like this imagery. All right. And guys like me don't care what you think. If you're going to get butt hurt, then get butt hurt, but it ain't for you on either side of the aisle. So President Trump, the military had to have a plan, a strategic plan, and they've been planning it for a while, but they had to do it lawfully. And that's what you've been watching. So he'll do things, and some things have been strategic. Some things have been distractions. So then they use some as pawns. They've used some people as pawns. All right. Certain people, certain faces, certain images, certain names, certain brands. All right. And that's what I'm saying. But when you know that is part of the strategy, you don't need to be getting individually mad at certain people, But if you know President Trump, and you know, if you know what I know, and you know others that know it like I do, all right, then you'll be able to see, okay, when he gives someone a nickname and he does something like that to the Pope, that means there's some, that when he said in 2020, we have it all, we caught them all. He can't say that any more clear. And you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to say it in Shakespeare or Spanish. All he has to say is, we have it all, we've caught them all. That meant everything. That means we have everything. And just let me throw a little wrench in here, even though it's a different topic. In that same interview, the woman's asking him again about the election of 2020. And he goes, well, they rigged it. They rigged it. And then he said, what? It's still in litigation. Oh, you know what that means? Executive Order 13848 with a national emergency that Joe, quote unquote, Joe they didn't terminate it. They didn't even let it automatically terminate. A national emergency has an automatic 2-year clause on it. Why didn't they just let it expire? So when you go back to the numbers, guess who has the numbers? The National Guard. That's why I kept telling everybody, the National Guard, the military is in control of the nation, because they told you in articles on military sites, official, the National Guard are at precincts all over the nation. The 2018, the 2020, 2022, and 2024 elections. We use analog systems, not digital. They cannot hack our systems. When we collect numbers, it's there. All right, so that's a indirect correlation. Jumping back over to President Trump, he has everything. And the military government allowed this to take place. And in order to have a military government, that means the Constitution was suspended. And the military law kicks in, military government. That's why he mentions Eisenhower all the time. Eisenhower was a supreme commander, military governor. He was a wartime president by definition. All right. So all what President Trump's doing, he's trolling the hell out of all of them, and the rightfully so. All right. But on the front, it looks the same way he does when he'll do here's another indirect correlation. When they had him meet Zelensky, quote unquote, which is all strategic, not real time. When they had him meet with him, all the liberals thought wee man Zachariah, I call him, or no, Zacchaeus, the little wee man from the Bible. They thought wee man stood up, because remember they kept saying, oh, the little man with no suit stood up to the big man, or the suit with no man. That's what they called it. Yeah, the little man with no suit stood up to the suit with no man. Well, how come little wee man signed the original deal? So the deal that President Trump said he was going to sign that day, and he said, yes, you're going to sign it, or else, that's the deal he signed. That's the deal Ukraine signed. All right, but that thing had already been done, number one. Two, all this stuff had to be unrolled, because look at Patriots on here already know. I'm not telling Patriots what they don't know. Look at all that President Trump has done in 9 years of legislation. I mean, look at what he's done. All right. There ain't no way. It would take them 200 years to undo everything he's done, because they're not competent enough to even do a few of them. If they were, they'd already done it. If they cared about the people, they'd already done it. They don't care about the people. They didn't care about the people. All right. And President Trump is that rich guy who says, I am wealthy, yes, but I love making deals. And he also knows how to keep wealth. The only way to keep wealth, like people like the Trumps, and there's a difference in rich and there's a difference in wealthy. A lot of people don't realize that. Rich just means that you may come into money, or you may hit the jackpot or something like that. Wealth means you pass it down the generation, and they never blow it, and they keep the same amount and or grow it. That is what wealth is. The only way to have wealth like that is to treat people at the very bottom with dignity and respect, from your janitors to your flower keep, everything. Your waiters, your waitresses, your service people, your true service people. Yeah, you're going to have a few here and there that are just, out to whatever, wanting to make a lawsuit. But when you can have an 85 to 95 percentile that love you and say, yep, I love working for him, that shows right there. So, the Pope situation, if you're putting all your faith into the Pope, Catholics, but not President Trump, you got a problem. You got a major problem. Now, I don't put President Trump over Christ and God, but I can tell you right now from every military and every military person that I know, and the ones that don't want a name and a face, the ones that are in the background, that man has done everything to the T of the foundation of this nation, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution of America, but also military law to the T. So, all these people get mad about that. You get over it. You either you love the Pope to either go over on his side and jump off the wagon, or realize that President Trump he's doing exactly what needs to be done, because when it's all unveiled in history, if you don't get on the good side, meaning like when they tell you more and more and more about child trafficking, that's the worst one out of all of it. Not knocking women who get trafficked as well, but children. I think we can all say child trafficking is the absolute horrendous evil sitting in worst. And sex trafficking, human trafficking right there with it. They just showed Cash Patel. They've already showed that he busted, that it's coming out. They're starting to throw it out to people. A satanic child trafficking ring busted. Now that's already happened. A lot of this stuff's already happened, but they're starting to unravel that. And Jenny says it all the time. Other people say it all the time. I say it all the time. Children is how we unite the world. If you can't get on board, or see the light, or whatever terminology you want to use, when they show you child trafficking, you got a problem, and you might need to be deported. All right, and there's and there's no other way to split. We can't. There's no hair to split there. So it's like President Trump. You either believe President Trump, and if you love that's why I keep saying over and over and over and over. If you love President Trump, if you support President Trump, then you got to believe in all of President Trump, all of it. But if you put God first, Christ and God, and then President Trump, and then put the military side by side with President Trump. There's no way he could have done what he's doing without the military. There's no way. And world leaders. So I don't put President Trump above God and spirituality, nothing like that. But there's a healthy way to look at it in a tier system that you can put it there, and you can trust him absolutely, because when you know all the other things around there. And it's like when people, I don't have much resistance anymore, because all the dummies have kind of faded away, because most of the dummies that were saying stuff about me, they were having to read everything about mine because they were trying so hard to debunk it. But when all the military stuff kept coming out, the New York National Guard and the Texas deployments, that squashed them. Anyone who's still saying it now, if they really look atrocious, because they haven't read anything and they just want a name or a face, or they're trying to make a quick, lights on their social media. But other than that, there's no denying now. You can't deny it if you know the foundation. I mean, it is there's no way President Trump would have been able to do what he did. He really would have been assassinated. Because when you look at what he did, let's just hypothetical, I can play devil's advocate. Let's just hypothetical say that President Trump was just a regular president and no military backing him. All right, this man dismantled the whole deep state. He went in, he stood in front of the Queen, he walked in front of the Queen. He left the Argentinian president on the stage. I mean, look at Saudi Arabia, the sword dance. Look at all the things that took place. The sumo wrestler. I always forget about that. The sumo wrestler. Emperor is supposed to be the one shaking. Why didn't Emperor shake his hand? Why was President Trump shaking the hand? All right, so when you look at that bigger picture and you hypothetically just act like that was real time, they let him go in there and dismantle right in front of everything. So, no, it shows you what kind of protection he has. It shows you that this was an absolute military government. And look at all what he's done. I mean, and I guess it's kind of like the best analogy for the average person is, where did President Trump speak at this past week? Roll Tide. All right. So the University of Alabama. Well, Alabama fans are spoiled in football. All right. And Nick Saban coached 17 years. All right. And he won how many national championships? 6. All right. Some coaches coach a whole lifetime and never win a championship. And then you have places like University of Tennessee where Phil Fulmer won a national championship. That's been 20, whatever, almost 30 years ago. All right. It's hard to win the national. Nick Saban. Well, the Alabama fans now, the first year out of the gate with the new coach, they're kind of don't know where it's going, right? But then they didn't appreciate all those. They did. They loved it. But from another angle, like, yeah, roll tide. Yeah, we won national championships. Yeah. But then what did they want? As soon as that game was over and won the national championship, what are Bama fans doing? We want to win another. And they won so much. They did. What happened? They got tired of winning, right? Because they just want more. And what does President Trump tell you? You're going to win so much, you're going to get tired of winning? Well, we don't want to get tired of winning. So if you don't want to get tired of winning, what does that mean? You probably need to know how to win. You probably need to know how to maintain and sustain the plan. And every other president was a part of a system. They were part of this alliance. All right. Now, the president himself, the person, let's just use Ronald Reagan. Maybe Ronald Reagan wasn't a bad person. From all we know, he wasn't. But we'll use someone else. It's hard to use anyone else. Let's just use Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was a peanut farmer from Georgia. All right. I just drove through Georgia about 5 minutes ago. But Georgia. All right. Southern boy. Let's say Jimmy Carter was a good guy. Let's say Jimmy Carter thought, you know what? I'm going to be able to rally all these people around me and we'll be able to make a change. But then Jimmy gets in and then he didn't see all those guns back there pointed at him. The ones that are behind that no one knows. All the wealthy that's behind that no one knows. And then also all the wealthy going to all his Congress and all the Congress members going, hey, if you pass this bill, I'll give you $1 million or $2 million. All this stuff. I mean, everywhere. And sometimes he can't control it. Look at football coaches that have coaches under them. External factors, right? Where another coach was operating on his own, thinking, oh, I won't ever be caught. But the head coach didn't know that was going on. So look at all the things that can take place and happen. So that's why you got to have a what? Tight system. It's got to be smaller government, not big. We do have to have a federal system, but it don't need to be big. Look at Hegseth. Hegseth announced today 20% of generals are going to be wiped out. That's just a start. All right. So it's that old saying, there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians, or you can have too many Indians and not enough chiefs. So it's always going to be a balance. And like President Trump said, we have to have a two-party system because it's good to be challenged, but it don't need to be one where it's like a completely different kind of alliance, completely different mindset, ideology that goes against the grain of our foundation, that goes against the grain of our founders. That's what we've had. So you have to you have to boil it down to what took place, what got hijacked, and the deep state created their own alliance, and they tricked everybody with it. Because what happened to people? Americans stopped reading what matters and stopped studying what matters. And then they started doing what? Infiltrating schools and infiltrating every aspect of our lives. They infiltrated everywhere they could. They pinned us against our core values. They started talking about religion, race, and then patriotism. They pinned everybody against our core, got everybody distracted. But Americans have got, all we got to do is go back to that foundation. And that's what President Trump and them have done. They've reset all your branches. They're cleaning it out, and they're making it smaller. And when they make it smaller, to be able to hand back over to us, the people, but you can't hand it back over until people know what's going on. Now, luckily, again, as he said, all these people he's been putting in ambassador positions are mainly veterans, and they're mainly special operations veterans, which tells you even more, again, that they're making sure that the next 20, 30, 40 years, that no one's going to infiltrate these different layers of the system. But in order to also maintain that, people have to be educated on the things that matter. And that's why I get frustrated more and more. I do, with you, not against you, but with you, when, you know, I can't tell you what not to listen to. And I'm not going to name names and tell people, because that's drama. And it's probably, and that gets into mudslinging even on my levels and but I'm not going to say, hey, don't listen to this person. Hey, don't go watch this. But at the end of the day, you got to have a foundation. And if you feel like yourself is being shaken after you watch 2 or 3 different, you know, opinions, mine's not an opinion. I know people think that it's not. I'm working with what President Trump's working with. All right. And it's not that he needed me as a talking piece per se. However, he did in another way, because he told all veterans to remember our oath. Well, remembering our oath means you got to remember where the oath stemmed from. Where did it come from? That came from the Revolutionary War. That means our foundation. And so to simplify your life, all you got to do is go back, read the Federalist Papers. Those are good reads. But go read the Constitution, work your way up. Read the Declaration of Independence, read the Articles of Confederation, just to see that was our first Constitution. And then they were going to basically redraft it, like keep that as the shell and just add to it. But they wadded it up and put it aside, and then they wrote the Constitution. But then you got to go read the Federalist Papers, read those. Read Thomas Paine's Common Sense. Read Marbury versus Madison. All right. And just see about those founders. They were brilliant, brilliant men. They weren't too old, but they weren't too young. I think Thomas Jefferson was 33 or 34 when he wrote the Declaration. All right. So wasn't old, but wasn't young either. Just so right in the middle there. So, you know, I get frustrated for people, but I mean, there's no way President Trump would have been able to do what he did as a regular sitting president. There's no way, because all the executive orders outline the military government, which is how they would have been able to take out all these people. Now, the justice part that people are so anxiously waiting for, yes, you're going to see justice. You're already seeing it, just not the way you think you wanted to yet. Now, they may show certain things, I don't know. But the only way that people are going to see it is until they get the other side, or as many as possible, receptive. The only way they can accept anything is to be receptive. So why not win, right? Why not have some big wins and get as many people on board as possible? Show people that the tariffs are pulling in money. Show people that, yes, your taxes are abolished, et cetera, et cetera. You win that way. You get the gas costs back down. You get the food costs back down. All right, back where it's supposed to be. And you show people that. Then there's no way the liberals can look what he did with Hollywood. He's basically declaring a national emergency over movies, that movies need to be made in the U.S. How's a liberal going to argue with that? That means they get paid more. That means that all the actors and actresses, I mean, he is truly taking it to all the liberals on that side to say, hey, you know, you've been captured too. So when you win, he told you our retribution will come through what? Success. Then they'll be able to show the punishment side of things. Going, okay, moving into the future, if you do this, this is what's going to happen to you. If you do that, this is what's going to happen to you. But you got to wait a little while. Too many people want to get the cart ahead of the horse. And you're still, a lot of those people are not appreciating the process to get there. And, you know, again, go fishing. You know, if you got too much time on your hands, go fishing. Go hiking. If you're fully awake, then look, you still got to live life. If you're just sitting around waiting on the TV to go, boom, EAS, you know, but you're not living life either. Time waits for no man. My dad says that all the time. Time waits for no man. You still got to live life around all this. And if you're just waiting on the TV or waiting on the phone to pop up and say, "Oh, Derek Johnson was correct," I mean, then you ain't living life.
So real quickly, Derek, since you're talking about the TV, and we know that the lying stream media, their viewership has tanked significantly, huge. There was something that came out on a video I posted, basically saying that it sounds like their FCC is going to pull their funding for the NBC, ABC, and CBS. What are your thoughts? I mean, we knew this was going to come, but do you have anything? It says FCC's first 100 days. Looks like national fake news broadcast licenses are going to get pulled. And that's from SEC Chairman Brendan Carr. Just dropped that huge bomb.
Well, and that's yeah, it's already been done. President Trump started hammering them straight out the gate. But then also this gets into what I talk about with country music. And I've been trying to show people that it's just as much a part of everything. All right. Because of syndicated audiences. And even Fox News, President Trump still hammers them too. It's a syndicated audience. All right. It's a captivated audience. Everybody's captured. They know who their clientele are, so they've been feeding them all these years. Same thing, CNN, MSNBC, etc. All right, but then you go back to this is why it's so awesome, and this is why you gotta again not pay attention. Like if your foundation's there and you understand military government and the continuity of government, the laws and the orders, everything that's been invoked that outlines this, then you're gonna know what I'm about to say. But this is why it's so important not to follow some propaganda, because the mainstream media are still lying on purpose in another way, because you're still in the military government. Now we're like in a partial continuity government because they made quote unquote Joe revoke a portion of the executive order 13961, the very last day of full presidency, January the 19th. So the very last thing on quote unquote Joe's record is the revocation of Executive Order 13961. Reason why that's important, it goes back to, you always have to, like if you find yourself, like whatever it is, having a brain fog or anything, or even doubting yourself, whatever it is you're studying, you always go back to the 8 executive orders and 8 national emergencies that quote unquote Joe continued by President Trump. Why would he do that? Why? Like, so if you go to a normal sitting setting and go, okay, that the last 4 years was real time and the last 4 years was real time, you wouldn't have said, okay, we're just going to take our chances that President Trump gets back in. We can't play any more games. No, they had Democratic control, quote unquote. They didn't, but just hypothetically here, if that was a real presidency and a real time, they had Democratic control of the House and the Senate. Why didn't they abolish everything by President Trump? There's not a thing we could have done about it if that would have been real time. The reason why that correlates with this is when you fast forward to the SCOTUS ruling that President Trump can use the 1798 Aliens Act, they left out the original act, the title of it. It's the 1798 Aliens and Seditions Act. All right, now they'll tell you that the seditions part was abolished in 1800 or amended and taken out. Well, why didn't SCOTUS rule the 1800 amendment? Why did they rule he can use the 1798 portion? So now that's not been made public, and I could be wrong about that, but it was amended in 1800. But the original act was called it's called that, the 1798 Aliens and Seditions. The seditions part is very important. That is exactly what correlates with the FCC of today, because that what the FCC, and you have your Telecommunications Act of 1996, and you also have your Communications Decency Act as well, which has your Section 230 in it that President Trump talks about needs amending, which would be also what he talked about in this last in the State of the Union address, where Melania was sitting there and she had 2 young females sitting by her, and the one looking at the screen on the right, the second story he talked about, he said she's been a victim of her photos being taken out on the internet and all kinds of malicious and vulgar and you name it. And President Trump said, a matter of fact, I'll be utilizing that act for myself as well. And he chuckled, meaning all the people who did stuff with his photos, et cetera, and his family, et cetera. All right, now tie back into this the 1798 seditions portion. SCOTUS ruled he can use that, which is stupid. It's amazing. It's amazing that we're at a point in time we have to have the freaking Supreme Court tell that the executive branch, the president, can use an act that Congress put into place in 98. All right, all those years ago, that no one has abolished in all those years. And we got to have the Supreme Court that think about what kind of babies really think about a baby. You know, you've all had a toddler who you take a toy away from it and they want to kick and whine and fuss. You know, that's what liberals act like when you think about it. We had to have the Supreme Court clarify that the president can use the 1798 Act. But the seditions part of it was where back then those founders said anybody who writes anything against the federal government, the government, law, etc., they could be punished. That's exactly what you're watching. And so, you know, they the ones who weaponized the media, got hard in with the alliance, and that's all the people that you couldn't see in the background. And it's the same thing with country music. That's why it's very important. And again, I'm the first person in country music history to unveil how the real system works. All right. And like Mark Chestnut, a lot of you maybe remember him in the 90s. He's saying that Zach Top is what country music needs, right? Why is it your son, Mark Chestnut? You have a son trying to make it. Why aren't you helping your son? Why isn't your son what country music needs? See, they're all part of a system, a dirty system. And it all needs to be taken down. And it's starting. President Trump signed an executive order with Kid Rock about the pricing of the concerts and the price gouging. And then you have this taking place. All right. And then this past week, the signing the executive order of intellectual property. President Trump was the one who signed the Orrin Hatch way back. I think that was 2017. I think it was the first year. Who was a congressman, but he played music. All right, and it was for the songwriters. All right, and all these different hijackers, because all these systems tie in, and it sounds like initially sounds far-fetched. No, so see, like the Spotify and your Apple, all those things. This is what I make per stream, and I solo write a lot of my songs, but per stream now, one play, 0.0033 cents. All right, and then you see people like Morgan Wallen and all these dudes making mega millions. See, this all ties in, and all your mainstream media. And then what do? You have Bud Light and all these big sponsors. Those sponsors pay for slots on those TV shows, like the Super Bowl. You've heard this before. Super Bowl ads, millions of dollars. Well, that's why President Trump, when he would hammer Fox News, he wasn't talking about Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham. Now, it could still be some of them, sure, absolutely. But he's talking about the people who own the networks, the people, the men and women you never see, the CEOs, the CFOs, the COOs, etc. And see, they were in an alliance, that the FCC and certain people. That's why he always said in 2017, it's not all of the CIA, it's not all of the FBI. And see, look at people who hammered Michael Jaco, because he was CIA. That's how dumb people are. And I have to use that term. The President Trump sat there and went to bed. It's not all in the CIA. It's not all in the FBI. He said it's a senior level leadership. Just something that simple proves people don't listen. They don't listen. They hear, but they don't listen. And so all this ties in. And that's why it's awesome. It's epic. And it truly is going to be handed back to the people. But people can't have everything handed to them if they're not educated on it. But that's why he's removing the Department of Education. Everything's going to be kicked back to families, you know, and that's why I'd love the interview too, where he said about the dolls in China. He said, kids don't need 30 dolls. They may need 1 or 2 dolls, right? So just something like that. Now, some are going to run with that and go, oh, he's a dictator, and he's telling your kid you don't need $30. You don't need $30. I don't need 30 four-wheelers. I don't need 30 trucks. I don't need 30 guitars. I'm close. I got like 15, but I don't need them. Can only play one at a time. But again, all this correlates. And that's what you're watching. That's what you're witnessing. I think CNN, their prime time, 9 p.m. is down to less than 500,000. X22, Dave gets that on one video.
CNN wasn't even I think they were down below 80,000 is what I think the last I
They're
heard.
down that low.
It's low. Yeah, low,
Well,
low.
I get more than them then. Hey, here we go.
I think we all do. That's why they say we are the news, everybody. So you got to be careful. Seriously.
Be careful if you're in South Alabama this week. If you see me streaking in the field celebrating, hey.
So we talked about the border. You talked about the border with Tom Homan here not too long ago. Can you touch on how we got crazy AOC? She's trying to get back in the forefront, and you've got Beto. What is it, Beto O'Rourke or whatever his name? They're out there trying to, what they're doing. Everybody's they're trying to make a name for themselves to get in for the midterms, right? But you got AOC doing I don't know, town hall, whatever she was doing in her hometown, I think of Brooklyn, and somebody calls her out. And basically, she was going for Tom Homan, saying, "Hey, you know what? Have him come for me," because I guess she was trying to tell the illegals how to basically sideline them and be able to stay in the United States, right? No, basically know their rights. Well, really, they don't have any rights. They're illegal. We have rights as U.S. citizens, but they don't have rights. What are your thoughts on that? I really hope he goes after her, and I think he will. Everybody, this is just a show, like Derek says, and many say this is already done. But what are your thoughts on that? I can't stand her.
Well, again, a military government and a continental government means that the Congress knows what's going on. Now, and early on, I was explaining this week that certain people would have been real time, but still knowing in a continental government, etc. Then others could be pawns and removed. The mask, the bruises, etc. Anybody who thinks that's far-fetched, you don't know much about the CIA. They've been doing this for years. But this time, when you know the government, the laws and orders, but when you know like the three branches of government, how they function and operate, and the military government, it still goes back to that again. So AOC and all these people, no matter how dramatic they are and how it sounds so propaganda and, this, that, and other, it's not real time again. So there's that. And then they're making some of them show their show their ass, which is perfect. That Jasmine Crockett, President Trump was talking about her, and they
Oh yeah.
A lot of these they're making them show real, and that would have been possibly a plea deal, in another manner that, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go out there and you're going to do this, this, and this. And so, I know that's far-fetched for the average person. But some of it's distractions to keep people going and keep people feeding on it, because people will gravitate to that. But there's a lot of distractions. The Chinese balloon is one of them. It's not a Chinese balloon. It's United States registration.
And the drones. Don't forget the drones.
And there were two right off the coast of Florida this week over in Tampa, too, with U.S. registrations. Are people flocking to the beaches to look at them? No, they're not. Are the media talking about them? No, they're not. All right, so why did they do that way back in 2023? Well, it was about 3 weeks there. Look, 3 good weeks that Americans was just always looking up, like just going, oh, we're, So all along the way, there's been these ultimate distractions, and people fall for it, hook, line, and sinker. So AOC, first off, anybody in real time who thinks that she's whatever, that she is that saying she is dumb as a brick, right? What they've portrayed of her. Now, I know it's all part of the plan, and to me, there's no way you can flip her. I mean, yeah, I guess you could. You can always do something, but the way they've made her portray herself, but they could. they could, at the end of this, depending on how the finale looks of all this stuff, because there will be a celebration, I do believe. The only way you can exonerate President Trump, it won't be him. It can't be him. And it can't be a Republican. It can't be a conservative. It'll have to be on the other side as they fall like dominoes. And so you saw Vince Vaughn, and the White House crashers, that imagery. All right, that alone shows you another comm right there. They crashed the White House, but it's actors. So they're giving you two different comms right there. Like, hey, we crashed the White House, we got it. But also he's with another actor. All right, and Vince Vaughn could have been playing. He's probably playing a role too. I do believe Vince Vaughn's been playing President Trump. One of them anyway. All right, so there's a lot of comms on this stuff. It's far-fetched to the average person, but when you lay out the laws and orders and go, look, okay, why do they keep coming out with these laws? Why did all the laws keep coming out that validate a military government? Why? President Trump signed an executive order this past week, an increase of military and civil law enforcement. Well, I'm gonna pick on someone now. Now I can move on off of someone else, but I can still. There's a certain person out there that claims to be a President Trump insider. I've already called their name out somewhere else so people can find it elsewhere. I'm not going to do it here. But they were sharing some low-level hater out there last year that, the military doctrine specifically keeps the military from intervening into civil. You're an idiot, like that person. All right. And then this person with the blue check is definitely a dummy for sharing that. Joint Publication 3-57 is civil military operations. Yes, we can. The way we work with civil is via a certain thing. It's called Title 10. How many times do I say that? So Title 10, page 46. If you'll look up the civil operations 3-57 and go to page 46, it tells you via what? The Constitution or Congress. Well, it just so happens that Congress did that. That is what Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550 is. So see, when you know all that, then why does President Trump, it says increase in military and civil, so law enforcement, that's your civil. All right. So that was an executive order just this past week. An increase, which means where's the Title 10 at? That order don't have Title 10 mentioned in it, so it means it's already been done. And the only Title 10 order at that capacity, 1 million federalized reserve components, is March 27, 2020, which is in that first 180 days under that Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. So that shows you AOC, anybody, whoever you want to name, they're either playing a role, good, bad, or they could be real time in another way, but they're still in the continuity of government. They're still under the military government. But even if they were real time, they're still in a playtime. Now, the way they portray her again, I mean, you'd have to, if she's a good person playing a bad role, like they'd have to really make her the highlight on the end of it. But a lot of these people, and I'm not saying as people hear me, they just hear, they don't listen. I'm not saying it's going to be 20 years that there's going to be a revelation. I'm saying, but 20 and 30 and 40 years from now, you're not going to remember that. You're going to remember President Trump. You're going to remember the victories. You're going to remember you're going to remember the things that matter. You're not going to remember the little hiccups and little bumps. You're not. So some of this stuff are hiccups. Some of it are bumps. Some of it's just not even worth your that. If you love President Trump, support President Trump, all you need to know is what he's working with and know that it's all part of it. If it wasn't, he wouldn't be playing golf and chilling some days. So some days he'll like if you subscribe to his text messages, it'll make you think, oh, the world's falling. And then you look at you go over to the mainstream media and there he goes again, teeing off, doesn't care about us on the golf course. All right, so you got to believe in one narrative. You can't believe in the flip-flop, because if it was a flip-flop narrative, then that would mean President Trump doesn't care about you. Because if there was a doomsday portion, but he's over here playing golf, then that would also mean a flip-flop. The laws don't read that way. The military doesn't read that way. So you got to look at one side or the other. So a lot of this is just distractions. A lot of it's part of it. And the portrayal of these dumb-dumbs, right? Schumer, Go back and watch some of the Congress spills of Schumer. Go back to what I was saying earlier about the passion. President Trump said, "Don't you love it that people like us have passion, don't have to read from a card?" Go back and watch Schumer, some of the old videos in 1990s and 2000s. He'll take a card and he'll read it and go, "Well, economists say, dang, you couldn't even memorize that? Dang, you got to read a card? What an economist said?" So see, these people are so incompetent, period, the real ones from all the years past, that they use this perfectly because why? Americans had already seen that. So the drama and the propaganda, Americans were already used to that. So it's a perfect distraction until they're ready to unveil things. All right, they're not ready for that. President Trump said the first marker will be May 26th. Now I don't know if that means the exact day that they're going to do something, but he told you Memorial Day 2025 will be the first marker, moving to July 4, 2026. That meaning that the golden age will be more and more and more, and the winning will be more and more and more, and the world fairs, people be coming all over the world, coming here. All right, world fairs, competitions. That means getting people involved. That means participation. So, you either believe in it or you don't. But what's going to happen, a lot of people are going to, you may not have a lot of friends and you may not have someone to hold you accountable, but you're going to feel that. You're going to feel what I'm talking about now. You're going to know that you didn't believe in him. You didn't trust him completely if you don't know what he's working with.
And I think Derek said a great point, and I say it often to my audience as well. Many people are missing the greatest time to be alive because they're so focused in the noise, the drama, and the bullshit. So you got to stay out of that noise because there's so many positives happening right now that they're just cruising by you, and you're not even seeing it because you're so focused over here. So stay into the positive, everybody, because we're going to continue to win. We're already winning. Trump says it all the time. Derek says it. I say it. Just stay out of the noise. And I don't know.
That's the best way to put it. It's like, if you really love President Trump, then you want to know what he's working with. There's a blueprint there. I just happen to be the one that has it. But outside of that, if you can't afford a book, then it's all over my pages. You got to piece it together for yourself. But yes, you should be focused on, man, like this is awesome. I love that. And the liberals, it's like Dan Scavino Jr. says, liberals are not. He says this all the time. He says, don't let the 10% make you think they're the 90. They're not. They bark loud, but I'd dare say that they're even 10%, because a lot of people are socially liberal but fiscally conservative. So the true portions of liberals is not a lot. So and you have nothing to worry about.
Amen to that.
Now I believe, like Native Americans, because I have Native American in me. I believe in the 7 generations out that we should always be living our life to pay it forward, to pass it forward. All right, but on the flip side and the fun side, what President Trump has done. It'd take 200 years for those dumb, idiot, incompetent people to even unravel 1 or 2 of what he's done. Like, because guess what has happened? There's enough people awake that may not know the literature and language, but there's enough people to go, we're not going back. Right. And so you got to look at the win like that, is that this has been a true revolution. We're not going back. We're not going back to the old system. Too many people are awake, and too many people now know how to listen through the bull crap. What he said in 2016 on the campaign, he told Jeb Bush, he said, you people on this stage, you tell the American people what they want to hear, and you never back it up. I am a businessman, not a politician. I will win them with the economy. All right. And he's done that. All right. Now, the 2021 to 2025 down the road, you're going to see that it was all done strategically. But you really haven't. You didn't hurt when you can go now and participate in pickleball championships, Jenny. All right, you can be a pickleball champion with sponsorships. We are not hurting in this nation.
Amen. That is such a good example, you guys. I mean, really. I mean, I'm back here in the background just laughing because that just really goes to show you that we're really not in a bad spot.
I mean, again, I know there are a few people out there homeless that couldn't connect dots in their life, but on the bigger, and those, they're going to be rescued. President Trump told you we're going to rescue all the homeless off the streets of our nation. We're going to clean up our streets, our sidewalks, etc. But in order to do that, we had to get rid of what first? The real evil, the real cartels, the real mafia. And that's what had to take place. But it had to be done lawfully. And that's why there was so much subterranean warfare going on. There's subterranean, and it's tunnels. And that's where most of them operated. That's why most people didn't see it. Well, why wouldn't we see it more? They don't need X amount of numbers. They just needed a few numbers. So,
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Things aren't always as they seem, everybody. Well, keep us posted on your interview with oh shoot, you said it. I got it on the tip of my tongue. The cartel's son.
Yeah,
Oh my
Pablo
God.
Escobar Jr.
Yes, Pablo
So,
Escobar. Yeah, I know. I remember he came into our live space and we were doing spaces over there with you. But yeah, keep me posted because I would love to bring more information about the children to the podcast because it needs to be talked about
it's
more.
going to be
So
May the 8th. We're doing it. So in 3 days,
okay,
we're doing, and it's only going to be on. It's going to be on channel 17. So News Treason. So that crew.
okay. You
And
want to
it's going
send
to
it to
be.
me when you're done?
So it's Pablo Escobar Jr. It's Carla Avila. She's the niece of Sandra Beltran, who was the female queen of cocaine, trafficking, and then also Jay Ross, who is the real Rick Ross, not the rapper, but the real Rick Ross, as his son. And they don't even have websites. It's Pablo has one for shirts and stuff, but as far as like their mission, they go out on the streets and they're Holy Spirit filled. Pablo talks about the Holy Spirit. He talks about God, and he's fluent. You can tell people, you can tell they flipped. And matter of fact, he was when he was on that show, when you brought him on that day, he says it just like this. I'm not going to use the word, but he said, my daddy, he effed, F-U-C-K, ladies, he effed with cocaine, but he didn't with children, right? And they know how these cartels work, all right? But then also, he was sitting in Colombia, and his uncle had to serve federal time too, because he was being back in the day, they were trying to kill him because of who he is. So he had to go seek shelter with his brother Pablo. So he knew the operations. He served, I think it was 14 years federal prison. And he did his time like that because he knew about the operations. Well, he was the one who told Pablo Jr. at a dinner table in Colombia, you got to listen to this guy, Derek Johnson. He knows what's going on. His laws and orders, what President Trump. They flipped their mission. They're saying that, yeah, but I know people who know a lot more of the intricacies on the other side, even without Pablo Jr. talking about it. But how no one wanted to do anything to Pablo Escobar until a certain thing started taking place. All right. So there's a lot of things that so many people don't realize about even that portion of it. But what they're doing now are showing how, look, yes, they were involved in cocaine and that. Was it good? No. However, they know how all the other forms of trafficking work. And so they've put their head on a swivel just like everybody else's, but that has had to stand up, because when they go against the very grain of that quote unquote lifestyle, it's the same thing when Elvis was given a federal badge by Nixon. Elvis was tired of singing. Elvis was tired of entertainment. He wanted something that fulfilled his life. He really wanted to take down the mafia too. All right, so that's why I tell people Elvis had a reason to go into witness protection. Now all these other people out there try to put in with no, but Elvis had a reason to go into it, because he tried to take down the mafia himself. Elvis was a Southern boy, but he didn't even go down as a draftee. He went signed up in the army. Elvis was tired of singing. He wanted to do that because he was a good guy and a good man, and he loved it. So when you look at the bigger picture and look at what God's doing, all these, you're either on the side of light or you're on the side of darkness. It's a good versus evil. It's not a Republican versus Democrat. It's the light versus darkness. And you can tell when someone has God really in their heart. You can tell when they really are walking with the Holy Spirit, as Pablo Escobar Jr. are talking about. You can tell when they're putting it on, and or they're just trying to, be a face or a name for the wrong reasons. You can tell they go to the streets, they go out and do street ministries. All right. And
Oh,
it's like Jay Ross says, I don't have a website. People know me on the streets. That's when you know they're real. So a lot of people would have a hesitation with that. You don't need to. You need to know that these people are working for God, and they're taking their father and aunt and story. So it's two fathers and then the niece. They're taking their stories and flipping it and doing the light work here. So it's very important to know these people, and it's even bigger that it is someone like them doing it.
well,
Because
I do have to say, since when he did come in that our chat when we were there over there on X, I was very impressed by what he had to say and how he basically said that, they flipped, that they're taking down, trying to help take down the cartels. So I think that's really huge. So yes, Derek, when you get that interview, send it to me so I can post it. And yeah, we need to start talking a little bit more about the children as well. I agree. Too many people are pushing it under the rug. So
yeah,
yeah, with that, everybody.
he and
Go,
I
go.
we've spoken. We've become we text back and forth and whatnot, and so it's he sent me all kinds of YouTube videos of Carla Vila and Sandra Beltran and the documentaries that they've made, and I mean it's I don't know, man, it's really
It's some
cool what's
shit.
going on. It's
Yeah,
really
it's
cool
some
what's going
shit.
on. We're winning.
Well, if you two ever want to come on the show together, I'd be happy to have you guys on. So let me know and we can make that happen.
Yeah, I'll what I wanted to do is the first interview I had, the time got mixed up somehow on our calendars, and so they all couldn't show their faces. So we rescheduled this one. That way, people can actually see them. You can see their faces, know they're real, and then when they hear them on audio from here out, even though they have blue checks, and you could be sued for having a blue check that's not you, but
Right.
still, see them first, and then people see that. Then yeah, we'll be able to bring them on and do other things, because they have I mean, it's a cool story. And it's like
Yeah.
Roseanne, it's like Roseanne and what she's doing. All these people thought for a while that everybody who's in the entertainment industry has to know something or is a bad person. That's false. It's completely false.
Right.
So.
Well, yeah, keep me posted. Yeah, I'd love to have you guys on. I'm bringing the video. If you want to do a video podcast, we can do that because I'm bringing that to the podcast realm here, as well as I'm doing a once a month. I'm going to be starting doing a once a month. It's 5 o'clock somewhere with the Revival of America, where I bring on a guest once a month, like you, and the audience just gets to know us on a personal level, so they can know that we are real people like them as well. So not business as usual, right? So but that will be on Rumble, and that will be a video one, so I'll keep you posted on that one.
Well,
But
that's cool. It's talking about a good person. I actually know the man who solo wrote "It's 5 o'clock somewhere."
oh, really? Well,
Yep.
shit, you can bring him on the podcast with you. I think it's going to be super fun. I mean, you can come in and sing to the audience if you want. I think it's going to be, we can do a lot of fun things with it. So I would love
Yep.
to have you bring you on there too as well. So everybody, Derek is here every 2 weeks. So Derek, thank you so much for being here, and glad you made it home safely. Glad you had a good time in Florida, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Well, I'm not home yet. I'm actually over at Fort Rucker and Fort Noblesville, but
Oh, damn.
I'm close to home. But yeah, I'll be here, and I apologize again. We didn't get the questions. I had set aside time for Q&A, but somehow we didn't get there. But I do apologize for people. However,
No.
you can message me anytime, ladies and gentlemen. You can message any of my social media. And also the email that I have that I've made public, so don't hesitate that either.
Well, let's plan on the next time you come on here. You can talk about your interview with Pablo Escobar Jr., and then we can do some Q&A. So we'll plan on that for the next one. And yeah, because I know I know you're driving back from Florida, so we want you to get home safely, Derek.
Well, I kind of like making pit stops here and there and different. I'm surprised though. Everybody should really be proud of me. I drove right by and had plenty of time to stop in Krispy Kreme donuts, and I drove right on by. So,
Good for you. All
Yeah.
those are probably the best donuts. Well,
Yeah.
drive careful, Derek, and we will see you shortly. And everybody, tune back in here on Wednesday. We will have SGN on with us, as well as John Baxter from Anti-Aging MedBed. And then Captain Kyle will be back on with us Friday, and Troy Let, everything XRP. So drive safely, Derek. We'll talk to you soon. I'm going to text you on the backside of this because I'm curious. I have some questions for you a little bit more on your trip to Florida. So drive safely. We'll talk to you soon. God bless everybody. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks, Derek.
Sounds good. We'll see y'all soon.
All right. Bye.